You are currently listening to Free FM 89, independent community media, and Global Warning, hosted by Stuart Schofield. This is a Jack Johnson song talking about one specific thing, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, and indirectly about a fourth thing, the personal responsibility we all have. That was Jack Johnson talking about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. This is Global Warning, and I am Stuart Schofield. I had Mr. Gordon Chesterman and Mr. Gary Schofield on the show talking about climate change, its impacts on Hamilton, and what we can do to stop it. I divided it into 3 sections, and the other 2 are available at accessradio.org. Again, that is accessradio.org. I do think it's funny that the song was the 3 R's. There were 3 of us, and you're listening to part 3 of the interview now. 3 really is the magic number. And here's the third part. There was a Jack Johnson song, Reduce, Reuse, Recycle, and it's interesting to me that recycle is the 3rd R, meaning that you should do the other 2 first. You should reduce and reuse, which is something that I don't see a lot of in terms of the world. We all think that we can buy our way out of climate change and buy our way out of global warming, and I don't think that's the case.
But isn't there a political solution? Because if you allow industries to self-regulate, I'll give you a good example.
Personal responsibility too.
Absolutely, and that's one thing that we forget to push in New Zealand. Hey, why is that kid so fat? Well, the mother keeps feeding the kid bottles of Coke and other sugar. Who do you blame, the kid for eating it, or the mother or the father for not trying to regulate and moderate the amount of intake of food? But look, take the sugar debate too. It's described by some people as a killer product, and that would be if you're eating spoonfuls of it morning, it's in day and night. But look, you go and look at the packaging. I go and look at the packaging. I don't understand it. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what all the elements are. And I have given a couple of senior politicians a free idea. And that is, you put a sticker on food products, doesn't matter what it was, a product that you buy at the supermarket, that has a little logo with a teaspoon on it. And inside the teaspoon has got the number 6 or 8 or 10 or 22 showing how many teaspoons of sugar are in the product. Now, a lot of uneducated people in New Zealand have got, like me, got no way of knowing what these chemical makeups are, but I do understand 6 on a logo showing a teaspoon, thinking, well, no, I'm not going to buy that. I think I'll take the muesli instead of the sugar puffs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the manufacturers are saying, well, yes, we put this information on the food labelling, and people should be able to work it out for themselves. That's rubbish. We should regulate that.
It's a little bit like when you have all the screeds of what you're agreeing to when you have a new application in your computer. Are you really reading all the little fine print that goes on?
Did you read the box?
I had an interesting thing happen to me. So I bought a lawnmower here locally, right? And it froze up within only a few times of my using it. And the first question was, well, you didn't read the manual. Well, I don't know anyone who goes home after they've bought a lawnmower and sits down and reads the manual. Again, you want things clear and obvious and stamped so that anybody can understand what's at stake. And so, very good point. Based on your years of serving Hamilton.
And this is one of New Zealand's big issues, the health issue.
Yes.
And unfortunately...
There was cholesterol not long ago.
Well, a whole lot. And of course, when I lived in the United States, the issue was America's always bigger and better, but the size of the people there, in many cases, are bigger and better. Yeah. I mean, look, there's a program on television, it's just so absorbing at the moment. It's called My Life as a 600-Pounder. And this, I mean, it's a tragic documentary, reality television. But it's covering off those people that just... Can you imagine being 600 pounds, whatever that is in kilograms? They've got no life. They've got no life. And the only way to control that is through healthy eating and exercise. Now, not
And
everyone's going to be a
personal
600-pounder.
And personal responsibility. That theme that we wanted to come back to for dealing with a lot of the issues. So, and on the one hand, having a wonderful government like you also shouldn't stop people themselves taking their own initiatives in conservation of energy and how they look at. By the way, trees. We're all talking about carbon sequestration and all these big words that scientists have. For trying to absorb, you could just plant more trees. So we're talking about
and that's
preventing
what the coalition government's going to do. I mean, that's been promised, and I absolutely support that. Planting trees.
Yeah, good on you.
All right. Because trees take in all the carbon dioxide that's emitted from factories and cars and all that glorious
Not all of it.
Well, they take in...
And they're a resource.
They do
and imagine if
some,
everyone in Hamilton...
Oh, they certainly.
It's better than nothing.
You're correct.
If everyone in Hamilton planted a kowhai tree,
yes,
we would have more tuis.
Yes.
Now, when I was young, in primary and intermediate school, my parents' house and all my friends' houses had fruit trees, plum trees, nectarine, peach, and that was how it was. But as the sections have gotten smaller, you'd be lucky to have a rose bush. Or a pot plant inside the house.
Exactly.
So, the planting of trees that the coalition government has advocated for and is doing, I think is a fantastic idea. Now, whether they're trees for cutting down and exporting and making a buck out of it, but for a period of time they will be doing the things that are expected of those trees.
Yeah.
And I think we should be encouraging every homeowner to at least plant one tree. And in Hamilton, it should be a kowhai tree.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, everyone should
Heard
have
it
a tree.
on this station.
Yes. Speaking of exports and cutting down trees, well, more exports, but New Zealand is a dairy and farming country, and one of the major parts of farming is nitrogen. You use it for fertilizer to make grass grow, and which cows eat, and it can negatively impact streams and water bodies due to runoff. So, what is a solution that anyone might offer to help put an end to eutrophication in water, which causes algal blooms, which makes areas like Lake Rotorua unswimmable?
Look, it's a very good question, and I'm going to give you an old-fashioned answer on that. I never thought about it 20 years ago. There were the farms, there were the beasties on the farm, and we drank the milk. Very, very simple. And then suddenly the scientists get involved in our lives, and all of the things that you're talking about suddenly remind me that there is a problem, because I have enjoyed fishing for trout, and therefore the environment for trout should be pristine. It's part of our tourism offer internationally about pure New Zealand, which may or may not be true, depending what you think about that.
100% pure.
Absolutely, and it's certainly not 100% pure. So we have come to learn about these things that we never ever thought about. I think, look, there was an image on TV just a few months ago, not long after the government made some comment on nitrogen in the water streams, and here was this beautiful herd meandering over the stream, through the stream, and probably doing what animals do in the water, polluting it a bit.
Yes.
So I firstly thought, what a wonderful looking image of New Zealand, clean green image. Look at those lovely cows enjoying the cold water, fantastic. But what's happened, of course, is now all the regional councils around New Zealand are regulating the runoffs, and farmers are being forced to fence their properties away from the waterways, and I think that's good. However, it's come at a huge cost to the farming community, and of course now we will be looking at more. Look at the latest problem with herds, and we're having to cull herds, and yet it's a disease that apparently doesn't affect humans, but in an international context, it sounds, I want to know a bit more about it. So yes, there are a lot of issues, and I agree that it's taken a period of time to shift the New Zealand view about the importance of protecting the environment through the control of where the cattle, the beasts, wander.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we are nearly out of time, and it seems as if it's come down to a few points of personal responsibility, recycling, and are there any other things that New Zealand can do to stop global warming as a final few points?
Well, I'd go to the point that Gary mentioned, and that was the tree planting. That's the easiest,
wonderful.
most simple form of doing that. Regulation in terms of the farmers is who's paying. It's like the culling of the cattle in the last few weeks. Who's paying?
Yeah. It all comes back to money.
It comes back. It does come back to money, and if the money's got to come from somewhere, it comes from you and I. It comes from the taxpayers. And if you ask anyone now if they want to pay more tax, I'll tell you 100% of the research will show that nobody wants to pay more tax.
No.
But look, there is an argument for user pays, and I'm a great advocate. It's like at the gardens, should you pay to go to the gardens or not? And I've got a dollar each way on that. I think that the garden should be open for free to everyone, but I think the feature gardens have got to be worth $5 or $10 to visit. They're an outstanding exhibit of stunning gardens. Anywhere else in the world, you will pay money to go and see
something so world class.
And they are fantastic gardens, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyone that hasn't been, just go.
And a fantastic zoo, world class zoo. I mean, this is for what Hamilton does. But I would like on Lake Rotorua, I would like to tell you a very quick story at the end, because when I came back after 30 years of being away, and I grew up here, and I was a sailor, so I would sail on that lake all the time. And that was one of my favourite things to do. Before sailing was everybody. I mean, this is back at school when they thought I wasn't playing rugby, there's something wrong with me.
And you used to throw your beer cans out of the boat, did you?
But coming
Sailing
back...
when drunk.
Yeah, no, but coming back, and it was an enormous job because the boat had been attached to the roof under the garage. We had to get the roof down, we had to get the boat down, we had to find all the little bits, assemble them all, find a way to get the boat to the lake. My father helped me. He was 90 years old. I had Stuart there. And in the end, we had to take the boat, assemble it on the lake, ready to go after all those years in the boat when I didn't even know it was going to sink or what it was going to float. As I got to put the boat in the water, a man in a uniform came up and he hammered in a sign that said, "No going on this lake," because of the algal bloom. Yeah. Because of the warming temperatures and because of the high nitrogen causing that. So I traveled thousands of miles and I went anyway. And there happened to be the reporters there. They made a big story of this idiot going on the lake with his son. So anyway, that was my story. But we have to look at how it impacts our culture and how it impacts our lives and other historic important things.
See, the thing that I've got out of this discussion is really from a marketing perspective, from my perspective, public relations, communication. And that is the need to communicate the issues in very simple terms. Very simple terms. Otherwise, you're operating at an academic level that is too high for the person to get an understanding. It's like my little story about the car. Don't know what's under the bonnet. In fact, I've only ever looked under it twice in the last 6 years. It's when the key goes in and I press the button and the car starts and I think, great, I can do something else.
Gordon, planet getting warmer. There you go. Just worrisome.
Okay. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yes, thank you both for coming in today and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do hope you enjoyed that section of the interview. And again, the other parts are available at accessradio.org. While I am giving out addresses, I might as well add that if you have any questions or queries about global warming itself, feel free to email them to globalwarning89.0@gmail.com. Again, that is globalwarning with an N, 89.0@gmail.com. And there were some very interesting and important points brought up throughout the course of this interview, and I do believe that the most important one was that of planting trees. The planting of trees only has beneficial effects on the environment. Not only that, it's easy. It doesn't require anyone else. It doesn't require anything else. All it requires is a sapling and a spade. The other way to preserve life on this planet is for industry to stop polluting it. The largest polluters of our atmosphere are not cars, but rather our power plants and industry. Regulations must be set and the environment must be preserved for us to be preserved. Another interesting point brought up was that of personal responsibility. It's the one thing we all have to do in this age if we want a 100% clean, green, and pure planet. And that falls back under planting trees as well. That is your own personal responsibility. Since the industrial era of civilization, we have only increased our worldwide amount of pollution. Attempts are being made in some parts of the West to curb the atmospheric pollution, but even then, not even universally. One of the ways we can help to dissipate and mediate this international threat of global warming is to plant more trees, but instead of that, we've only increased deforestation and pollution. As well, young sapling trees absorb more pollutants to grow than older ones. This means that a young forest is more beneficial to us than an old one, and the time to create one is always now. Planting trees only gives benefits, especially to the atmosphere. And since I'm talking about the atmosphere, I feel like it's only fitting to mention that Mr. Gary Schofield mentioned our thin veneer of an atmosphere, and it really is thin. All you have to do is climb a small mountain to see that the air at the top is noticeably thinner than that at the bottom. Agreeing with this is Neil deGrasse Tyson, a well-renowned astrophysicist and reputable source, who equated our atmosphere to the skin of an apple. You've got the whole chunk of a planet there, and a tiny film of a skin. That skin is our atmosphere. Solar panels. They not only provide energy, but could they be heating our planet up? Because solar panels are unreflective by design, if you cover an area of the desert which is highly reflective with solar panels, it heats up. Instead of all the heat, light, and solar energy being reflected back into space, it's trapped within the Earth's atmosphere and in turn heats up the planet. We could be directly heating our planet while indirectly trying to cool it off with solar panels. New Zealand, however, contains an excellent, and I mean amazing, alternative source of energy, and it's wind. It never stops. New Zealand has done an excellent job utilizing wind and hydro energy. It's 82% renewable. However, there's only one country on the entire planet with 100% renewable energy, and that's Iceland, due to its abundance of geothermal energy. New Zealand is very far up there, and I don't see why we can't use other creative ideas to get us to 100% renewable, which should be the goal. New Zealand is a very, very educated country, and the idea of urban wind power in the form of a pinwheel wind machine brought up by Mr. Schofield it's a fascinating one. A tiny little wind sculpture created with the same light materials that go to space, that spins in the eternal winds of New Zealand, doing nothing but creating energy, is fantastic. And I think it was Charles, hey, here's the royal family. I think it was Charles of the royal family who said that the way we view the environment is flawed. We only see it for how much we can take out of it to run our cars or power our TV or light bulbs. We see it for profit, not for the intrinsic value it provides. The value it has because it exists. We measure it in the billions instead of the trillions. We fail in the way we see it as something to take from rather than something to preserve. And by preserving the environment, we preserve all life on this planet. After all, if you have no environment, you have no planet. I would like to thank you all for listening to some of that. I would also like to remind you that if you have anything you would like to ask about climate change, feel free to email globalwarning89.0@gmail.com. Again, that is globalwarning with an N at 89.0@gmail.com. We are going to finish today with Weather in My Head by Donald Fagen, and thanks to Free FM 89.0 Independent Community Media. My favorite line in this song is, "They may fix the weather in the world, just like Mr. Gore says. One can only hope."